In this lecture, we will discuss about the types of international organizations. I will differentiate between international corporation, multinational corporation, global corporation, transnational corporation. Let us start with the first definition of international corporation. A domestic firm that builds on its existing capabilities to penetrate overseas market is an international organization or international corporation. Multinational organizations have operating units, that is subsidiaries locating in foreign countries, and global corporations, a type of multinational corporation that maintains control over its worldwide operations through a centralized home office. Transnational corporations are, they provide autonomy to independent country operations, but brings these separate operations together into an integrated whole through networked structure. So, multinational companies maintain operations in multiple countries. Multi-domestic, global company. So, first one, that is multi-domestic, in a MNC that decentralizes management and other decisions to the local country or the host country. For example, Nestle. Nestle is a multinational company with which has its origin in Switzerland, but in each country they have the multinational company has decentralized the management and other decisions based on the local country's needs. Global company is a multinational company that centralizes its management. There is a centralized management like in Sony. Sony has the parent company has its the home country is Japan. So, it is centralized, the decision making or centralizes its management and other decisions in the home country. Transnational corporations or borderless organizations, if an MNC has eliminated structural divisions, there is no structural barrier that impose artificial geographical barriers and is organized along business lines that reflect a geocentric attitude. So, for example, Ford or ABB, they have adopted a geocentric attitude adopting the global best practices, the global talent. Then how does an organization go global? Minimal global investment to significant global investment. So, there is a shift from global sourcing to strategic alliances, joint ventures, foreign subsidiaries, sometimes through export, import, licensing and franchising. What is going global or going international? Importing and exporting. The least complex method of expansion is through import and export. Exporting, firms makes products and sell abroad. What is export? Exporting is firms make products and sell them abroad. Import is firms sell products which are made abroad. Licensing is firms allow foreign organizations to make and distribute goods for a fee. Helps the home firm since it does not have to set up a complete production and distribution network. For example, PepsiCo, Cola. Franchising, company sells a foreign organization the rights to use brand name and know-how in return for a payment and profit percentage. For example, Subway, McDonald's. Then what is strategic alliance? Partnership between an organization and a foreign company in which both share resources and knowledge in developing new products or building new production facilities. For example, BMW in Pakistan. Dewan Motors is a distributor of BMW in Pakistan. Joint venture, a specific type of strategic alliance in which partners agree to form a separate independent organization for some business purpose, is called a joint venture. Foreign subsidiary, directly investing in a foreign country by setting up a separate and independent production facility or office. for example, multi-domestic or global. So, there are different forms of international business: export through licensing agreement, through management contracts, managerial and technical know-how, sharing with the parent and the host country, primarily technical know-how. So, in exports, basically let us see the difference. In exports, goods and services are exchanged between the parent and the host country. Licensing agreement, primarily technical know-how is shared between the parent and the host country. Whereas in management contract, managerial and technical know-how is shared. In joint ventures and strategic alliance, there is a material, service and personnel is exchanged or shared between the parent and host country. Subsidiaries, foreign subsidiaries, there is a sharing of capital and know-how between the parent and the host country. Managing in a global and specific environment, forces which are yielding opportunities and threat in a global specific environment, competitors, suppliers, distributors and customers. So, suppliers and distributors, managers buy product from global suppliers or make items abroad and supply themselves. Key is to keep quality high and cost low. Global outsourcing, firms buy inputs from throughout the world. General Motors might build engines in Mexico, transmissions in Korea and seats in United States. Finished goods become global products. Distributors, each country often has a unique system of distribution, like managers must identify all the issues. Customers and competitors, formerly distinct national markets, are merging into a huge global market, true for both customers and business goods. Creates large opportunities. Still, managers often must customize products to fit the culture. McDonald's sells a local soft drink in Brazil. Coke sells a product which is made in India to the Indian customers. Global competitors present new threats, increases competition abroad as well as home. There are some global brands like Chrysler, Gillette. Why? When is globalization appropriate? Globalization works best when brands can be adopted for visual appeal, avoiding translation problems. When the brands promoted with image campaigns playing to universal needs, values and emotions. High-tech products, new to the world, not steeped in the cultural heritage of the country of origin. When the products have a nationalistic flavor, if the country has a favorable reputation in the field, products are appealing to a particular market segment with universally similar tastes, interests, need and values. Brands which are promoted with image campaigns, like the ad which has been shown in the previous slide, the image advertising of the Chrysler's product or the automobile maker Chrysler. High-tech products, when the product is a high-tech product which is new to the world and not steeped in the cultural heritage of the country, unlike the products which are made by Sony, Panasonic, which have a rich cultural heritage associated with the product. Products with a nationalistic flavor, then there is if the country has a favorable reputation in the field, products appealing to market segment with universally similar tastes, interests, needs, values. So, what we discussed is globalization is appropriate when the product is having a visual appeal, or the brands have a can be adopted for visual appeal, brands promoted with image campaigns, high-tech products new to the world when the products have a nationalistic flavor, like most of the products manufactured or marketed by the Japanese companies Sony, Panasonic, etc., they have a nationalistic fervor associated with them. If the country has a favorable reputation in the field known for its quality products like Toyota, which is a product which is associated with quality and which is also which has an origin from Japan. So, we will discuss in details how the quality management practices can be incorporated or quality management practices can also give a favorable competitive edge to the company. In the later half of this discussion, we will discuss products appealing to a market segment with universally similar tastes, interests, similar values. What are the factors influencing global business? Managing in a global general environment. Earlier we discussed what are the factors influencing the specific environment of the global business. Now discussing about the global general environment, political and legal systems, socio-cultural system, economic system, factors yielding opportunities and threat. The legal environment, political legal forces, stability or instability of legal and political system. Legal procedures are established and followed. Fair and honest elections held on a regular basis. The home country's political and legal environment influences the multinationals. Differences in the laws of various nations affects business activities, effects on delivery of products and services, results from diverse and changing nature of each of the country's political system. Representative democracies such as US, Britain, Canada, citizens elect leaders who make decisions, usually has a number of safeguards such as freedom of expression, a fair court system, regular elections, limited term of officials, well defined legal system and economic freedom. These totalitarian regimes, a single political party or person monopolize power in a country. There are difficulties to do business with given the lack of economic freedom. Further, human rights issues also cause managers to avoid dealing with these countries. The economic environment of the country also influences the global trade, economic system, free market economy, an economy in which resources are primarily owned and controlled by the private sector, planned command economy, an economy in which the economic decisions are planned by the central government like in France, mixed economy where there is both government as well as the private control. Monetary and financial factors, currency exchange rates, inflation, diverse tax policies. Free market economy, production of goods and services is in private ownership. Production is dictated by supply and demand. Command economy, decisions on what to produce, how much to produce, what is to be done, everything, the decision is taken by the government. Most command economies are moving away from the command economy. Mixed economy, certain economic sectors controlled by private business, others are government controlled. Many mixed countries are moving towards a free enterprise system. There are certain recent trends which have been reported, current shift from the totalitarian dictators towards a democratic regime. Very dramatic example seen in the collapse of the former Soviet Union. Also very pronounced in Latin America and Africa. Will this shift has come a strong movement towards free market systems. This provides great opportunities to business managers on a global level. Many businesses are investing millions of former totalitarian countries to seize these opportunities. Then we will discuss about the national culture and its impact on global trade. Is the values and attitude shared by individuals from a specific country that shape the behavior and their belief about what is important. Includes the values, norms, knowledge, belief and other practices that unite a country, may have more influence on an organization than the organization's culture. So, what are the values, what are the norms? We will see that the values are the abstract ideas about what a society believes to be good, desirable and beautiful. provides attitude for democracy, truth, appropriate roles for men and women, usually not very static, but a very slow change, very slow to change. Norms are social rules which prescribe the behavior in a given situation, like how the people should behave. These are some routine social conventions about the dress code, the mannerisms. The norms vary from country to country. For example, when you describe Americans, the description comes with their cultural association, like the Americans are very informal, direct, they are competitive, they are achievers, independent and individualistic. They keep questioning, they dislike silence, value punctuality, value cleanliness. So, these are some interpretations about Americans. Similarly, Indians can be perceived as someone who maintains power distance, who is risk uh, low in risk taking, who prefer to be more informal, who prefer to be say who prefer to maintain relationship, family orientation. So, these are some kinds of cultural connotations associated with a group of individuals. Next, we will discuss about changing political and economic forces, like the economic, if you plot the difference, or if there is economic freedom on one axis and political freedom on the other axis. So, we move from the command to the mixed and market economy, and on the other hand totalitarian to democratic approach. So, the world economy, the countries can be plotted on different quadrants. Russia in 1985 was more in the totalitarian and totalitarian approach, and command, the economy was command economy. Later half, or in later 1990s or 1995, there was a shift from totalitarianism to democratic approach, and the market was more mixed. Similarly, Britain in 1985 was democratic, and it maintained its democratic approach in the 1995 also. Hungary was having totalitarian approach, and it has a mixed economy towards a market based economy in 1995. So, also China also had shifted from the command economy to a market based economy, and so with this we can see a difference in the global trade across different countries, and what are the barriers in global trade. We will discuss about the trade barriers or tariff barriers. Tariff is a barrier to trade, tariffs and taxes levied upon imports. If a Japanese company intends to sell its product in America and there is a 25% of trade barrier or tariff barrier imposed, so there would be difficulty in selling the product. Tariff are taxes which are levied upon imports. These seek to protect jobs in the home country. Other countries usually retaliate. Free trade is a trade agreement. Each country seeks to specialize in things they make most efficiently. If India is more efficient in making textiles and US is good in making computer software, then each country should focus on the free trade. Distance and culture barriers. The second leading cause of the trade barriers is distance. Closed the markets as far as some managers were concerned. Communications could be difficult, languages and culture were different. During the last 50 years, communication and transportation technology has dramatically improved. Jet aircrafts, fiber optics, satellites have provided fast, secure communication and transportation, and these have also reduced cultural differences. Free trade. North American Free Trade Association abolishes most tariff on goods traded between Mexico, Canada and US, allows unrestricted cross border flow of resources. Many US firms have now invested in Mexico. This is a manufacturing opportunity, wage costs are lower in Mexico, can serve Mexico with a plant in Mexico and reduce freight. Managers face new opportunities and threat. Strategic alliance to overcome barriers in global trade, regional trading alliances or trade agreements, European Union, a unified economic and trade entity, Belgium, Denmark, France, Greece, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, United Kingdoms, Germany, Australia, Finland and Sweden. Regional trading agreements like US Central American Free Trade Agreement CAFTA, Free Trade Areas of America, Southern Cone Committee Market, Mercosur, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Trading Alliance of 10 South Asian nations, Southeast Asian nations, African Union, South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation or SAARC countries. So, these are some of the regional trading agreements. ASEAN member countries are Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia. World Trade Organization evolved from General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade in 1995, functions as the only global organization dealing with rules of trade among nations. It has 149 member nations and 32 observer governments, monitors and promotes world trade. So, understanding national culture is important for global managers' strategies to set or to design strategies for international organizations. Next, we will discuss about inter-country differences which are affecting global business, cultural factors, economic system and legal and industrial relations influence international management, with a specific emphasis on impact of national culture on managing business. I will lead the discussion about what is national culture. National culture has a greater impact on employees than does the organization's culture. Nationals select the work for foreign companies and it may be atypical for the local or native population. With this we will discuss about the classification of national culture, a high context culture and a low context culture. What is a high context culture? Culture where communication happens in ways that are implicit and relies heavily on the context or background. Low context culture relies on verbal communication, explicit verbal communication. High context cultures are collectivistic, value interpersonal relationship and have members that form stable close relationship. In a low context culture, it relies heavily on explicit and direct language. So, let us just discuss about specific points about low context and high context culture. A high context culture values formality, face saving communication. It emphasizes on relationship and slower pace needed to develop relationship. So, there is high emphasis on relationship building, formality and face to face communication. On the other hand, a low context culture values informality, informal discussions, informal interactions which is not bound by any rules and regulations. Direct communication, directly interacting with each other, fast paced and punctuality. So, what are the attributes of the high context and low context culture? In a high context culture, business is conducted through development of relationship, whereas in a low context culture, relationship interfere with the business. Nonverbal communication is important in high context culture, verbal agreements are important in low context culture. Contracts are on the basis of relationship in a high context and contracts are abiding and exist apart from personal relationship. Time is fluid and schedules tend to be flexible. So, there is more flexibility, relationship orientation, there is rigidity and careful observation, go by the terms and conditions, time is related to commodity and schedules are carefully observed. So, we will see the difference between, or we will see how the countries vary across the definition of high and low context culture. Germany has a low context culture, whereas Chinese have a high context culture. Scandinavians, they are on the low context culture, Americans then. So, in terms of gradation we can see Germany, Scandinavia, America, English or the English, French, Italian, Spanish, Mexican, Greek, Arab, Africa and Chinese. So, Chinese are on a high context culture and German, Americans, English, they are on the low context culture. Hofstede has also defined culture on a dimension, on a 5 dimension, that is individualism versus collectivism, power distance, uncertainty avoidance, achievement versus nurturing, achievement orientation, long and short term orientation. So, I will discuss about what are these dimensions in more details. Individualism means where there is freedom for expression, where individual has a freedom to express self, usually has a strong belief in personal rights. People have a belief on the personal rights and need to be judged by their own achievements. Collectivism is a worldview that values on group over individual achievement. So, individualism, collectivism, individualism emphasizes on self oriented values, collectivism emphasizes on group oriented values. So, widespread in this collectivism is widespread in communism, prevalent in Japan, China. Managers must understand how workers relate to this issue or dimension of individualism and collectivism. So, based on this difference of individualism and collectivism, we can find that in workplace, people from a different cultural background prefer to work independently. In some like Americans, Germans, they are more independent. They would not prefer to work in groups, whereas people from China, Japan, in India, there is more focus on collectivism, there is more emphasis on group orientation even in the workforce. So, understanding these cultural differences is a must for the global managers, because while deploying manpower in different positions, this must be taken care of. The next point to be highlighted is the power distance. What is power distance? A society's acceptance to the difference of power or to the difference in positions or the position power. A society's acceptance of difference in power or power differential or the gap between the rich and the poor, in the distance with gap between the gap between the senior and the junior must be recognized, and some countries are having a higher, are on the higher side of power distance, whereas some countries have low power distance. So, this must be acknowledged in the global trade. Western culture, US, Germany, UK, they have relatively low power distance and high individualism. Many countries like India, Pakistan, they have high power distance and low on individualism. Societies and people differ in their willingness to take on risk. Low uncertainty avoidance, value diversity and tolerate difference. Uncertainty avoidance means avoiding risk taking, complexities or uncertainties. Value these individuals, they value diversity and tolerate differences, tolerate a wide range of opinion and belief. High uncertainty avoidance, Japan and France are more rigid when they are, because they do not tolerate people acting differently. high conformity to norms is expected. They abide by the rules and regulations. There is more preference for certain rules, regulations to be followed in the workplace and not being very ambiguous. Long term and short term orientation or long term and long term outlook. Long term orientation is based on values of saving and persistence. Taiwan, Hong Kong are cultures that are long term in outlook. Short term orientation seeks to maintain personal stability or happiness. France and US are examples of short term orientation. Hofstede's dimension of national culture, individualistic, that is people look after their own and family interest, collectivistic where people expect group to look after and protect them, individualistic countries, the countries having individualistic approaches are United States, Canada and Australia, collectivistic approaches Mexico, Thailand, Japan. High power distance accepts wide difference in power, greater deal of respect for those in authority, in position, wide difference between the rich and the poor. Low power distance plays down inequalities. Employees are not afraid to approach nor are in awe of the boss. High power distance countries Mexico and Singapore, low power distance countries United States and Sweden. Then what is high uncertainty avoidance? Threatened with ambiguity and experience high levels of anxiety. Low uncertainty avoidance, comfortable with risk, tolerant of different behavior and opinion. High uncertainty avoidance countries Italy, Mexico and France. Low uncertainty avoidance is United Kingdoms, Canada, United States and Singapore. Achievement values such as assertiveness, acquiring money and goods, concern for materialistic values, competition and being very competitive. Nurturing values are to be more relationship oriented, concern for others prevail, showing concern or to be nurturing oriented. So, achievement oriented to be more nurturing, these people will have a kind of mentoring attitude and achievement oriented countries, the countries which are high on achievement orientation, United States, Japan and Mexico, and countries which are high on nurturing are France, Sweden. Hofstede's 5 dimensions of national culture, the last dimension or the last dimension of the 5 dimension framework of Hofstede is long term and short term orientation. Long term is people look for future and value thrift and persistence. Short term orientation is people value tradition and the past. They wish to be in the associated with the past. Short term thinking the countries like Germany, Australia, United States and Canada, and long term thinking China, Taiwan and Japan. So, across the globe if you make a comparison, there are some dimensions which we can discuss quickly, that is assertiveness. Countries which are low or high on this dimension, Sweden is low on assertiveness, whereas Spain is high on assertiveness, and the moderate countries which are moderate on assertiveness is Egypt. Future orientation, countries which are low on future orientation, Russia, and which are high on or which are moderate on future orientation, Slovenia, and high on say future orientation is Denmark. Similarly, gender differences, countries which emphasize on gender differences like Sweden, which is low on gender difference, whereas country which is high on gender difference is Egypt, and Brazil or Italy is low on moderate on gender difference. Uncertainty avoidance, Russia has a low uncertainty avoidance, high uncertainty avoidance is Mexico. The countries which are low on uncertainty avoidance, that means they are they do not like ambiguity, they are more clear, they are less on risk taking. Similarly, collectivism, in group collectivism, the companies which are low on in group collectivism, Denmark, moderate is Japan and high is Egypt. And the performance oriented culture, Russia is low on performance oriented and United States is high on performance orientation and Sweden is moderate on performance orientation. So, we are giving a holistic view of how countries are rated on these dimensions of asceticism, future orientation, gender differences, uncertainty avoidance, power distance, individualistic and collectivistic values, group orientation, performance orientation and human orientation. So, these understandings are important for a global manager or a manager working in a global firm, so that they can identify what type of management practices would be important, how to culturally adapt to the management practices in a global firm. Achievement oriented societies value assertiveness, performance, success. The society emphasizes on result orientation. Nurturing oriented societies emphasize quality of life, personal relationship, emphasis on service. So, US and Japan are achievement oriented, while Sweden, Denmark are more nurturing oriented. So, what we have discussed is the impact of national culture on management styles. In this lecture, we discussed about national culture broadly categorized into high context and low context culture. Then we discussed about Hofstede's dimension of national culture. Those dimensions are long and short term orientation, uncertainty avoidance, low and high, achievement and nurturing orientation, then individualistic and collectivistic orientation, high power distance and low power distance. And with this I would like to conclude this session here. Thank you.